We're going to begin the opening statements with Omar Aquino.
I want to begin with thanking everyone for braving the code and coming out to listen to this great discussion. I want to also thank my opponents here for agreeing to participate in the discussion. I want to thank all the organizations that worked on bringing this important discussion to Steinmetz High School here. But again, my name is Omar Aquino, and I'm running for Alderman in the 36th Ward. And the reason is because the 36th Ward and the Northwest Side is home to me. My brother actually was a graduate here of Steinmetz, and I started school just a couple blocks away at Mary Lyon School. But in the 36th Ward and arguably in the city, we are lacking true leadership. And specifically in the 36th Ward, our alderman has decided to run elsewhere. So it has left a void, and many of the neighbors have been talking about the lack of city services that they see, and we want to fix those things. The other concern is public safety here. And I'm a proponent for hiring more police officers. I think we need more after-school programs, both at schools and in parks for our children, and year-round employment opportunities for teenagers. I'm also a product of Chicago Public Schools, and my mother was a CTU member for over 16 years. I'm a proponent for neighborhood schools. I believe that we have to stop the proliferation of charter schools in the community, and I'm for an elective school board. But all that said, none of this can be completed if we do not solve our main issue in this city, which is our budgetary crisis that we're currently in. What I believe distinguishes myself from my opponents is that I have some ideas in hoping to resolve some of those issues so that we have the sufficient funding to pay for more police officers, the sufficient funding to have more educators in our classroom, and the sufficient funding to pay for the world-class city services that we all deserve. So for that reason, I hope to earn your support, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Villegas.
Good evening. My name is Gilbert Villegas, candidate for Alderman in the 36th Ward. I was born and raised on the northwest side of the city. I spent my entire life fighting for those in need. As a Marine Corps veteran, I fought during Desert Shield and Desert Storm. As a Teamster Union steward, I served and worked to make sure that the drivers and dock workers' rights were protected. For the Illinois Department of Transportation, I was a deputy director who oversaw two departments, the Office of Workforce and Business Diversity, as well as the Small Business Enterprise Program. After 5 years with the Illinois Department of Transportation, I was recruited to the Hispanic American Construction Industry Association, where I represented 300 companies and passed 2 pieces of legislation that ultimately became law. After 3 years with the HACIA, I was tapped to be the Chief of Staff for the Illinois Capital Development Board, where I oversaw 140 people and a $3.9 billion capital program successfully. After 3 years, I decided to open my own company where I'm a small business owner, a consultant, where I help small businesses penetrate both the public and private sectors. I have a list of endorsements and those that understand and support my vision for the 36th Ward, for the new 36th Ward. Congressman Louis Gutierrez, Congressman Mike Quigley, State Senators Iris Martinez, Senator Martin Sandoval are just a few that, of the elected officials that are here that supported me. But more importantly here, I'm here to earn your endorsement, because your endorsement is the one that matters most to me. So again, thank you for coming out this evening, and I look forward to hearing this debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Vittorio.
Again, thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Chris Vittorio. I am a lifetime resident of the 36th Ward. My wife is also a lifetime resident. We just purchased our 3rd home here. Our plan is simple. We want to raise our kids and spend the rest of our lives here. We're here because we love it, no other reason. I am a business owner. I started my company in 1998. Over the last 17 plus years, I've maintained exceptional growth. I've currently employed 4. I'm adding 2 more later this year. I am an independent, a true independent. There are no special interests involved in my campaign. I'm running for alderman because, like a lot of people in this room, I'm sick and tired of what's gone on at City Hall. I'm tired of having to beg for city services. The current condition of our ward is terrible. Most importantly, I'm sick and tired of machine politicians and their self-serving decisions that are the cause of every problem we face. I believe that my independence, My lifetime commitment to this ward and my extensive business experience make me uniquely qualified for the job. And I hope they have the opportunity to be your next alderman.
Thank you. Candidate Zaragoza.
Thank you. My name is Alonso Zaragoza. I'm running to be your alderman in the 36th ward. I was born and raised in the neighborhood over by Laramie and Fullerton, born in the same single-family home, still live there, never moved in or never moved out. I didn't move into this ward just to run for office. I live with my family. My two parents, they're 75 years old. I pay the bills. They own the house. Yesterday, I got my water bill. It was $100 more than the last bill. And the bill before that, it was 3 times more than the bill before that. And, I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about a lot of families out in the ward. Because if I disappear, something happens to me, or I lose my job, I don't know how my retired parents are going to be able to afford to stay in our community. So I'm here to fight for the families of the wards, not for other politicians, not for special interests, for the residents. I have graduated from Lane Tech High School, have a bachelor's in accounting from the UIC, and I'm the only candidate here with a master's degree. Graduated from Dominican University with a master's in library and information science, so I'm a librarian. Only librarian running for office in this cycle. I've been involved in the community since I was 15. I didn't just become involved last year to run for office. I've served on various LSCs since the age of 18, advisory park councils like the one at Reese Park. I was involved with the Northwest Neighborhood Federation back when it was something big in our community, back when I was 17, 18 years old. And I even formed the Belmont-Cragen United Community Organization because we lack a community organization here on the Northwest side. I'm the only candidate who's actually walked the ward as a child and as an adult. And I'm an independent. I've been endorsed by the IVIPO and the NDFA. What you should know is that there are several machine politicians, such as the Arroyo family in Barrios, who are running candidates
Thank you,
at this table.
Mr. Zaragoza. We're now going to proceed to each of the questions, and we're going to start with Gilbert Villegas. The first question is about vacant industrial properties. What would be your plan for redeveloping or repurposing the many former industrial properties that sit dormant in the 36th Ward? Candidate Villegas, please.
Thank you. I'm running under a platform called PEACE, Public Safety, Education, Accountability, City Services, and Economic Development. And my economic development plan has earned me the endorsement from the Chicago Federation of Labor. I'm the only candidate that has actually run a not-for-profit trade association. And so my plans as it relates to vacant properties that would be located along these corridors is to try to entice building trade associations to develop training programs for those students that are not going to go on to college. When we take a look at Prosser Vocational School and we take a look at some of the trades that they're teaching there, they're really not cut out and they're really not advanced enough to make sure that we're training our students for the next generation. When we take a look at 1871 down at the Merchandise Mart, we need to take a look at repurposing these facilities here to bring some of these tech jobs to the west side of the city, to the northwest side of the city, but also take a look at Prosser Vocational School and my partnering with the Illinois, with the Brotherhood of Electrical Workers 134, Local 150, pipe fitters. These are the types of training programs that we need to prepare our kids for so that way they can earn these great paying jobs on these public works projects. Thank you.
So dealing with our vacancies as far as commercial real estate, my plan is simple. First and foremost, I want to get every possible resident involved in what I'm doing. The more involvement we have, the better off we are. I want to talk to these property owners, see what we have available, what their bottom line is, what can be negotiated, and what they're looking to accomplish with their property. By using the residents on my side, I want to talk with you. I want to see what type of businesses we'd like to see in our neighborhood. I'm also going to reach out to residents and ask them to sign a petition. Once we come up with a good plan and what we want to see, I think everyone should sign a petition. Now I have some type of appeal when we approach different business owners. And then my job as alderman is to go out there and entice new businesses to the ward. My role in city council will be to try and get any type of funds we can get to help with new business owners, startup costs, build out, whatever it takes. And I believe that we do have a lot to offer. Although we have a lot of vacancies, commercial properties, we do not have a lot of vacancies with residents, and our residents spend money. My wife and I, we're a small, we're a young family. We spend probably 70% of our money outside the ward. So my goal is to try to keep our dollars local and bring us businesses that the residents want, that are going to be longtime residents with our community.
My Aldermanic office is going to have a well-trained staff speaking English, Spanish, and Polish to help businesses who want to come into a ward get started. They're going to help them cut the red tape that is very famous here in the city of Chicago. We're also going to use TIF money to lure businesses into the ward. If we could offer them some sort of tax break, I'm pretty sure businesses are going to come on into Grand and Fullerton and the other major streets in our area to relocate here. We also need a Chamber of Commerce, and that Chamber of Commerce is going to be powerful, and they're going to help bring in these businesses from other areas and get our community hired. I also will let those businesses know that they will never get pressured by this alderman to make political donations in order to stay in business like is done typically in other wards.
First and foremost, I think we need to take a collective approach at trying to make sure that vacant industrial properties, we reach out to entrepreneurs and try to attract them to the Northwest Side. The Northwest Side historically, especially in our communities, have been the home of working class families, middle class families, many of which are part of representative of union groups and labor groups. And so we want to, one of the first things I would do is to try to work collectively with the Chambers of Commerce and academic institutions to do a comprehensive study and see where are the incentives to try to bring in those entrepreneurs to this to our community, and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, making sure that the TIFs are actually doing what they're supposed to do, and is attracting those businesses here so we can create jobs. And we want to make sure that they're union jobs and good paying jobs so we can grow our middle class in this city and on the Northwest Side. And I agree with my opponent, Gilbert, in that 1871 and tech industry is proudly a place, Chicago can call a place home to many of those businesses, and we want to make sure that we can attract those businesses and startups to our community. We have many metro rail stations nearby that could bring people from downtown and the suburbs to work here in the Northwest Side and also provide jobs where people live here on the West Side.
Thank you. The second question is about ethnic diversity. Although the new boundaries of the 36th Ward has a high concentration of Hispanic residents, the ward is also home to significant populations of Filipinos, Italians, Poles, and Ukrainians. As alderman, what will you do to ensure that you fairly and equitably represent all the constituents in the 36th Ward? We're going to begin with Christopher Vittorio and then proceed to each candidate.
Well, priority number one, we're definitely going to have a staff that consists of Spanish-speaking, Polish-speaking, any need that there is. We're going to make sure that there's not a language barrier. I'm born and raised in this ward. I grew up in Galewood where it was 100% Italian. And as I got older, it transitioned part Hispanic, part African American. I attended school in the Montclair area. Again, we started off at St. William, predominantly Polish and Italian. As I got to 6th, 7th grade, that was much more Hispanic. I've lived with every type of ethnicity in this neighborhood. I think the biggest challenge we have is the layout of our map. We have from our northwest corner to the southeast corner, it's almost 9 miles away. So as alderman, I'd need to make sure that our office location is accessible to everyone. I also would entertain the idea of it doing a remote location a couple days a week. No matter where you put it, it's going to be a tough find for certain residents. You know, I don't play favorites. I'm here because I'm a lifetime resident, and I'll do what's right for the entire ward.
When we bought our house on Belden, we were the first Latino family to move in. Our neighbors were Polish. Worked really well with them. They became our friends. Some of them became family. I'm not here to serve a Latino community or a white community or African American community or Polish community. I'm here to serve the whole community. As a librarian, this is what I do. I don't really care about who you are. I care about what you need and how I can help you with that. We're going to have, as I said, a trilingual staff, Polish, English, and Spanish-speaking staff in our ward office. We're also going to do mobile ward nights. So you're not just going to have to come to my office. I'm going to actually go to your neighborhood. So we're going to have a ward evening or afternoon in the parks, in the libraries in the area, at the grocery stores if that's what it needs to make sure that everybody is served properly. It's not an issue about where and when. We're going to take care of everyone in the ward. And I can assure you that.
I'm proud to say that all of my material has been in multiple languages, in Spanish, Polish, and English, and that would be continued once in office. I would also have a staff that is multilingual, Spanish, Polish, English. I've worked in constituent services my entire career. I've done that in the state, and I've also done that working for Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth. I know what it is to make sure that the stakeholders, the residents, and everyone that needs to have a voice at the table has that voice, and especially when considering with decisions that are made within the community and within legislation in City Hall. And so we would make sure to do that when I have an office that is open, accessible, and transparent. In the same way that I have been knocking on doors since May and going door to door, I continue to plan to do that once in office, because it's very different to talk about the issues in someone's office or get an email and whatnot, and very different when you actually are there with the residents and talking about those issues and holding yourself more accountable. And so I plan to do that once in office.
Well, the 36th Ward is very unique in that when you're walking around and you're taking a look at the diversity within the ward, it's something that I wish was more replicated across the city of Chicago. My staff will obviously reflect the diversity within the ward. I've also put out literature that is in Polish, Spanish, and English as well, making sure that my message is getting out to all the constituents. I think that I'm going to use my office as a business incubator because most immigrants tend to be entrepreneurs. I want to capture that, and I want to leverage that because, again, I think this is a great opportunity to demonstrate the diversity that's in the 36th Ward. I'll be having a traveling ward office where we'll be moving our ward throughout the precincts to address the issues specifically located in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question regards the Chicago School Board. Currently, Chicago is one of the few municipalities in the state with an appointed school board. Do you support the status quo where the mayor appoints all the board members, an elected school board, or a hybrid that would include some appointees and some elected board members? We're going to begin with Alonzo Zaragoza.
We need an elected school board. I'm the only candidate here who's collecting signatures to get it on the ballot here in the 36th Ward. For the last couple of years, we've had rallies against charter schools and because of the budget cuts here in our schools, and I'm the only candidate who showed up to these rallies and helped organize them. I think that 60% of our property taxes are going to CPS, and yet the voters are not part of that process to elect the school board. And what I believe is that the mayor should have 1 or 2 seats on that school board, and the rest of them should be elected by the public.
I'm in agreement with Alonzo. I think we need an elective school board. We need a transparent school board that we can hold accountable and voters can hold accountable. There's too many people at the table making decisions that are not reflective of what a school board should look like, that are actual educators making decisions based on proven data. And so I'm for absolutely an elective school board. And especially when we have a city and a state that, unfortunately, when you talk about corruption within politics, we certainly, even more so, need more transparency at all levels, and especially when it comes to our education and the education of our children. So I'm fully supportive of an elected school board.
I am for an elected school board, but more importantly, I'm for students, parents, and teachers. My vote will be for an elected school board, and I recommend that you do the same. The elected school board question referendum will be on the ballot in the 36th ward, and I encourage everyone to vote in favor of an elected school board. I'm more in favor of the hybrid model. I feel that the board should be reflective of policy experts as well as community members. But I want to make sure that there's diversity on the board and making sure that the districts are reflective of the students that make up the population.
I am for an elected school board, not a hybrid. I think that our tax dollars are paying for education, our parents need a true voice, and a school board should be elected.
Thank you. The fourth question is a two-part question, and it concerns charter schools. It's submitted by the Steinmetz students. First, do you support the expansion of charter schools in Chicago? Please explain. And second, do you think that public funds should be used for profit-making charter schools? We're going to begin this round with Mr. Aquino.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last portion to that?
Do you
Profit.
think that public funds should be used for profit-making charter schools?
Gotcha, thank you. As I said earlier in my introduction, I am not for charter schools. I think we need a moratorium in this city on the expansion of charter schools. I truly believe that charter schools are a privatization of our education. And there's special interests that are trying to run our schools with public money, and I believe that it's essentially a tax haven for the rich. And so I'm totally against charter schools. I'm against providing public money to profit-making corporations and so forth within the school system.
I'm for a moratorium on charter schools. I think that these charter schools should not be set up as profit entities, but more set up as for not-for-profit entities. I want to make sure that, again, we're focusing on students, parents, and teachers in that order, making sure that the students are getting qualified and great educations. The parents understand that their kids are going to great schools and they feel safety. And more importantly, I'm for teachers having the ability to collectively bargain. So I want a moratorium on charter schools. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we need to fully support our neighborhood schools. So definitely a moratorium on charter schools. I think that charter schools, first and foremost, putting public funds in private hands is never a good idea. Anytime there's profits involved. And I know some people talk about numbers being better with charter schools, but they have the luxury of selective enrollment. I know that the lottery process is supposed to be honest, but you know, they do expel kids. So any kid that's underperforming, they're allowed to expel them, send them back into the neighborhood schools, and their numbers stay up. And the reality is that if we were to wipe out all of our neighborhood schools and go completely to charter, we'd see a lot of the same progress. So definitely we need to focus our efforts and our money and our attention toward our neighborhood schools.
Chris is right. Charter schools don't work. They're not proven to work. And they're taking money away from our neighborhood public schools like Steinmetz. Steinmetz lost $3 million in the last couple of years in funding. Not long ago, they put a charter school across the street, literally across the street from Prosser High School over here by Grandin Long. There's no reason for it. I was one of the members in the NAC process. We evaluated that particular charter school proposal, and we decided it wasn't for our community. And yet, you know, this mayor, made it happen. Charter schools, they don't work. Here in our neighborhood, Stand for Children, an organization that is pro-charter school, just made a recent donation of $1,500 to State Rep Luis Arroyo, and Luis Arroyo is one of the people who is, one of his candidates is here at this table, and just said that he doesn't support charter schools, but he's being run by a guy who's taking money from them. No, I think charter schools should be stopped. I think we should focus our money on our existing public schools and not worry about putting more money into the hands of private organizations.
Thank you very much. The fifth question has to do with traffic safety. Negligent motorists can be a great threat to the safety and well-being of people throughout the city, and of course here in the 36th Ward as well. If elected, what plans do you have for improving the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists traveling throughout the 36th Ward? We're going to begin this round with Mr. Villegas.
Well, definitely, we want to increase access to public transit in the 36th Ward. We want to make sure that there's barriers that are protected bike lanes. Safety is key. During the summertime and during the spring, more and more people are bicycling to work. When you take a look at Grand Avenue, you can actually take Grand Avenue all the way from the Brickyard all the way to Navy Pier. If those bicyclists want to take that route, we should make sure that they have an opportunity and they're traveling along that corridor safely. When we take a look at, bicyclists, we need to make sure that with the public transportation, that the CTA buses and these mass transit options have the flexibility to allow these bicyclists to take their bicycles to downtown when they're going to work. So I'm for making sure that public safety is a key for those that want to have different traveling options.
Well, I think the biggest problem we have in the 36th Ward is the neglect as far as the condition of the ward. And when you're dealing with streets that are in disarray, crosswalks that are clearly unmarked, traffic lights that, some don't work, this would be a first priority. We need to get our ward in the condition that it deserves to be in. I think this question will probably lead into the traffic red light camera. And I will say that I'm opposed to that. I think that program causes more harm than it does good. It's definitely there to generate some money. And it's also caused a lot of traffic along our neighborhood streets. People that are avoiding these intersections that are known for red light cameras or speed cameras. And we have people, I live in Shores Village right off of a busy intersection, Oak Park and Belmont. And I have so many people zipping down School Street because they want to avoid the speed cameras on Belmont Avenue. So these are some things that I'd like to address. Bike lane, to be honest, I don't see the need, but if there should be a need, I think it definitely needs to happen. So that's something that I would take depending on the demand.
We need more protected bike lanes. We need more timed lights at major intersections so we know when those lights are going to change, so we don't risk running through a yellow light and getting a red light or a speed camera ticket. We need more expanded bus lines so that people don't have to bike to work, right? The Laramie bus stops at Grand. It should go all the way to Montrose. Some of our public buses here, they stop running after 10 or 11 p.m. They should be going all night for the people who work the third shift. We also need better city services. I mean, when you're biking through potholes, right, trying to avoid them, that's not good. I mean, that's going to cause accidents. And when the city doesn't clean our streets, especially our side streets, and you're trying to bike, to work or to school, I mean, that causes accidents too. City services, increased city services in our neighborhoods, especially in the 36th Ward on the northwest side, would make the streets safer for everyone.
In knocking on doors and speaking with neighbors, I know that traffic safety is a huge concern in this community in the 36th Ward, especially actually nearby, walking just on Narragansett from Belmont, between Belmont and Irving Park, or Warwick, because that's where the new map goes to. There's people that want even stop signs on Narragansett because people treat Narragansett as if it was a highway and just fly by in that area. And there's a huge concern for children that are going, especially near here, across the street to the library or coming to Steinmetz and so forth. And within the communities and the small streets, a lot of people are requesting speed bumps. Especially near schools and parks. We want to make sure that we have speed bumps all around our schools and all around our parks. And even when traveling, the ways to travel to those parks and schools, we want to make sure that those streets have adequate speed bumps. And when we're talking about protective bike lanes, I'm for that, but we want to make smart decisions because as we spoke about earlier, we want to try to make sure that, especially around the Grand corridor that's a big industrial area, that we're making smart decisions that won't negatively impact other people, quite like our businesses that are in that area, that huge trucks, you possibly can't travel down Grand Avenue then if we have protected bike lanes. But there are ways and measures that we can make sure that we're upholding the safety of our neighbors.
Mr. Vegas?
I started off.
Okay, sorry. Question 6, school overcrowding. With many local elementary, middle, and high schools operating beyond capacity, what actions would you take to ease the overcrowding and bring new public schools to our community? We're going to begin with Mr. Vittorio.
Well, again, I think we need to support our neighborhood schools. I see that we have some trailers on the property here. It's going on or happened recently at Locke School. Once we get beyond that capacity, I think we need to repurpose. We have a lot of schools that are closed, and we need to revisit possibly opening those. Any expansion, and we do have a lot of property available, so I think the support should go to our neighborhood schools.
I think we need to build more annexes for these crowded schools. If we have to go to Springfield and lobby for more money, then that's what we'll do. If we have to go to Congress to get more federal funds for more schools to be built or for schools to be expanded, then that's what we have to do as aldermen. We could also talk to other aldermen and work together to get a school where it's needed, even if it's not in our ward, as long as it fulfills the needs of our students. We can also use TIF money to help pay for these expansions and these annexes.
The first thing I would do is to create an education advisory council. I think we need to make sure that all stakeholders are at the table, including administration, teachers, parents, and so forth. And so, in speaking with some administrators, I know that currently at Hanson Park Elementary School, they're hoping to get funding for an annex as well. And I'd be supportive of neighborhood schools and supplying the adequate funding and resources that are needed to make sure that our teachers and our administrators have the adequate resources to have and provide our students with a world-class education.
What I would do is take a look at, again, trying to bring some annexes to these schools, make a visit down to Springfield to advocate for additional funding from the Education Committee. I would also work with the Public Building Commission to kind of find out what is their multi-year plan as it relates to new schools that are in the area. Remember, when we're talking about these new public schools, they're very costly, but at the same time, if we're able to look at it with working with other aldermen, so that way collectively we can take, lobby and advocate for the students for a new school, I think that would have a greater impact. At Locke School, a gem in the 36th Ward, kids are out there playing in a dust ball. And one of the first things I'm going to do when elected alderman is make sure that we're bringing resources to Locke School and making sure that we're bringing a new playground, because again, those students are out there in the summertime with dust just flying around, and those kids deserve better.
Thank you. The 7th question has to do with senior housing. With the many baby boomers who live in the 36th Ward nearing retirement, what plans do you have for attracting new senior housing developments to the community? Let's begin this round with Mr. Zaragoza.
We do need senior housing in our area. My parents are not going to live in that senior housing, but maybe somebody else's parents might need it. I've been working with Alderman Suarez for a little while to get some of the senior housing that's needed in his ward and that he's been able to bring in successfully. And I think we could do that here in the 36th Ward as well. We could use some TIF money to lure some of these contractors to our ward so they could build these affordable senior housings. It's doable, it's necessary, it's needed, and as alderman, I'm going to make sure that we take care of our seniors that need that assistance.
I agree, we certainly need affordable senior housing in the community. However, I worked as a case manager for seniors and with the Department of Aging and the Jane Addams School of Social Work. And I know that seniors many times would prefer to live home as much as they can. And the state has a community care program that has provided services, adequate services for many years to seniors that want to try to maintain their independence. And so I would hope to work with our state electeds to make sure that those programs don't get cut statewide, so that funding still exists, so that people can maintain their independence in their home. If they need a homemaker, they can be able to get services like that, so that they can stay home as much as they can, especially for homeowners in this community. A lot of seniors that live in the 36 are homeowners for homes of over 30 years. They are valuable assets and resources in our community. We want to make sure that we are able to provide them the option of doing that.
As it relates to senior housings, I would definitely talk to the developers and try to attract developers to build these types of senior housings. We have two senior houses in the 36th Ward, great people. But I would also expand a little bit and talk about maybe veteran housing as well. As a Marine Corps veteran, I'm really concerned about the fact that a lot of these veterans are homeless, and a lot of these senior veterans don't have these facilities. Again, as a member of All Chicago Board, I'm working closely to end homelessness. My main focus is obviously focusing on veterans, seniors, and again, I think that attracting these type of developers and letting them know that these opportunities exist is one of the first things I'll do as alderman.
Well, again, I plan on getting the community actively involved in any issue that we have. I see senior housing as, we need to approach it based on the need. I don't think soliciting builders just for the purpose of bringing in seniors is a good idea. We need to make sure that our local residents, there's a need for this type of housing. We need to take care of the 36th Ward. We do have plenty of opportunity, a lot of vacancies where we can do this, but I think it should be based on the need. I think most importantly, we need to focus on bringing in quality business and make sure that our residents have exactly what they need.
Thank you. The eighth question has to do with the City Council. The Chicago City Council currently has 50 aldermen. Would you be in favor of reducing the number of aldermen? And if so, what do you think is the optimal number of council members? We're going to begin this round with Mr. Aquino.
That's a great question. And many people, I think, jump to the conclusion of absolutely, we need less aldermen out there. And I believe that 50 aldermen is an adequate number, and because of the fact that we won't be saving as much money. If you look just in history, the state of Illinois did this in 1980. It was a 1980 cutback amendment, which reduced the number of state reps that we had in the Illinois House. And the aftermath of that was that we currently have the most powerful Speaker of the House in all of the nation, where since 1983 he's been Speaker, only lost one term, and then after that I would argue that probably has more power than ever. And so we want to make sure that 50 aldermen, I think, also allows for grassroots efforts of a candidate to go out there, knock on doors, and be able to try to earn the support of their neighbors. If you reduce that and you expand the number of area that each alderman will be representing, I believe that it'd be difficult for more grassroots effort of gentlemen and ladies that want to represent city council. So I think that there's some, if you just look at sort of the history of these options, it really doesn't save us money. It has outlying effects that are negative effects on what people that possibly would be supportive of that, just look back in history and see that it's not necessarily that great of an idea.
Great question. I am for reducing the size of the city council. I think that 50 is a luxury that we can no longer afford. I think that the number would somewhere between 40 and 25. If we took it to 25, we will be looking at saving nearly $10 million. So I'm for reducing the size of the city council, again, between a number of 40 to 25.
We answered a question similar to this in, I believe it was the Tribune questionnaire? Yeah. And my response was kind of along the lines with my opening statement. I think the biggest problem we face is the corruption we have in City Hall. We have machine politicians that are so eager to get elected, to stay in office, that they're making decisions that are not in our best interest. All the evidence that you need is right here in the 36th Ward. We have a current alderman who has uprooted his family and moved to another neighborhood because he needs this job, and he feels that his chances of winning election are better in a different ward. We have two individuals who have clearly moved to the ward within the last few years, I would say specifically to run for alderman. So I would argue that the job of alderman has become too prosperous and too powerful. The only way that we're truly going to rid ourselves of corruption is to take away the money. And I think the best option is to go back to what the job of alderman was intended, which is part-time, minimal pay with limited or no benefits. I think we should shrink ward sizes, and I think we should up the number of aldermen and make it minimal pay.
Decreasing the number of aldermen means that these aldermen are going to have to represent a larger district. If that happens, you completely eliminate any grassroots independent candidates. If we eliminate any independent candidates, what you have are more political machines running their candidates, just like Chris said here. We need more independent aldermen that are going to stand up against the mayor's bad proposals like parking meter contracts, not paying our pension debt. You know, we don't need more machine politicians running for office and controlling our wards like a fiefdom. What we need are just more independents, more independent candidates like myself and like Chris here. 50 aldermen is perfect right now.
Thank you very much. The ninth question is a longer question, and it concerns minimum wage. Last year, the Chicago City Council passed an ordinance that would increase the minimum wage in the city to more than $13 by 2019. Some aldermen advocated for a higher minimum wage of $15 per hour. Please state your position on increasing the minimum for business in the city of Chicago, and comment on the impact such an increase will have on small businesses and low-skilled job seekers, many of whom are teenagers, who will be effectively prevented from finding legal employment. We're going to begin the round with Mr. Villegas.
Well, just recently, the city council and the mayor passed the $13 an hour. I think that no one can really tell where that number came from. You had the Illinois retail merchants that were proposing $11, and then you had the unions that were proposing $15, and I think the city council just decided, well, 13's in the middle. Just today in the Senate, they passed Senate Bill 11, which is a bill that's going to be raising the state minimum wage to $11 by the year 2019. Remember, this minimum wage that the city council just passed doesn't mean that tomorrow you're making $13 an hour. You went from $8.25 to $13 an hour by 2019. So it takes 4 years to get there. I think that we're in this situation because of the fact that the state of Illinois did not attach a COLA to a minimum wage. And so what happens is that after a period of time, maybe 5 or 6 years, 10 years, you say, well, we need to revisit the minimum wage. We should, if we're taking a look at doing a minimum wage, we should attach a COLA to it all the time, so that way we're not consistently coming back to the table to talk with some arbitrary number. Because of the fact that we have a lot of suburbs that are neighboring the 36th Ward, we have to be cautious because, again, these other competing cities and municipalities are going to have an advantage over us. So I would encourage the residents of the 36th Ward to try to shop local, support your local businesses, so that way we're not impacted so much. Thank you.
I am in favor of a fair wage, but the way this was passed recently is a prime example of the problem we have in City Council. I believe that this was passed quickly and for the purpose of giving current aldermen and a mayor an opportunity or brownie points to get reelected. I would have liked to seen this done along with the state of Illinois. By having our minimum wage that much higher than the state of Illinois, we're making businesses less competitive. This could be detrimental, especially for a ward like ours that is neighboring suburbs that are so close. I look at what's going on in Elmwood Park and Rosemont, and factoring in that now enticing new businesses to our ward and asking them to pay what could be an additional 20 or 30% in labor costs could be detrimental. So I think it should have been done with the state to make sure we're in the same playing field. And I think our goal now is to make sure that the state of Illinois follows suit.
At $13 an hour, you're really only making $25,000 a year. Two-bedroom in this area costs about $1,000 a month. That means half of their income is going to go into just rent, healthcare, food, everything else. How can they afford to live like that? It isn't just students working at McDonald's anymore. It's adults, it's seniors working at McDonald's, you know? And this $13 an hour wage isn't going to take into effect until 2019. By then, a good number of these people are going to have to move out of the city because they won't be able to afford to live here. No, I think that it should be $13 an hour by 2017, right? And I think that law should affect companies that are large, that are billion-dollar companies, not the smaller ones.
I'm a proponent for the minimum wage to be raised to $15 an hour. Data shows that that money is spent right away, usually locally. People that are making minimum wage are not putting that money away into a savings account. They are using that money for necessities. And so, and usually locally. So in terms of its impact on business, it can potentially have a beneficial impact on business of getting more consumers coming to their businesses, to their local businesses that are spending money that they actually have now. I do think that absolutely, as Alonzo noted, that places like Walmart and others and McDonald's and these large companies should be paying better wages to, these large corporations should be paying better wages to their employees. I mean, if we have to take a look at maybe potentially proposing incentives for our small businesses, some tax rebates and things like that, to ensure that certainly it doesn't have a negative impact on small businesses. But I believe that if you raise the minimum wage, you have more consumers that are spending that money right away locally, it'll potentially have a better impact on them.
Thank you very much. Question 10 regards the mayoral race. And before I give the question, let me remind the panelists that they do have the option of not answering any question. The city of Chicago has many evolving problems that need to be addressed immediately. Which of the 5 candidates for mayor, Rahm Emanuel, Bob Fioretti, Jesus Chuy Garcia, William Doc Walls, or Willie Wilson, do you think is best equipped to handle the education, financial infrastructure, and safety issues facing this city? Also, which mayoral candidates do you support and why? Let's begin with Mr. Vittorio.
Well, to be honest, I haven't decided on my vote for mayor. I think that the top 3, I think everyone is somewhat qualified, but to be honest, I can't pick one yet. I haven't decided. So I haven't put my support or endorsement on anyone. I'm undecided.
We shouldn't be undecided here. None of us should. In 2011, as the president of the IVIPO, I said that Rahm Emanuel was the least progressive candidate out of the 22 people who wanted to run for mayor. And I was right. Parking meters, red light cameras, unpaid pensions, I mean, the snowstorm, everything that's happened is as a result of a mayor that doesn't care about our residents, that he only cares about downtown and not the communities in whether the northwest side, the south side, or the west side. He just doesn't care, right? I'm supporting Chuy Garcia. I think Chuy's done an amazing job working with different communities, not just his own community. I brought him up here to the north side to meet voters, and he was well received. I think Chuy has the best option or the best chance of beating the mayor, and I think we should all rally around him.
Like most people in the city, I too am undecided of who I will be voting for mayor. And actually last night, after knocking on doors, I watched the latest debate on Channel 11, and I'm still undecided. I think that each candidate has some good qualities of leadership that the city council and this city needs. I believe that there's a lot of things that I do not agree with what what Ram has done in this city, but there's certain things that I have seen that I do like, and one of them is putting Chicago on the map with the tech community and with startups, and also the expansion of protective bike lanes and the bringing in a shared bike program to the city. I think Bob Fioretti, his story of surviving cancer and being a leader in the city council for many years, it should be respected. With Chewy, he's a leader and has experience both in the city, state, and county, and so he's someone that I'm looking at as well. But Mr. Wilson, he has an amazing story of coming, progressing through American story of coming sort of from nothing and being a successful businessman himself. And Doc Walsh for many years has been an amazing civic leader in the city. So they all have great qualities. Like I said, as many of my neighbors, I'm still undecided though.
Well, when I saw that this debate was on the same day that the Mayorals were debating on Channel 7, I was a little disappointed. Because again, I'm undecided as well. We have a great opportunity. There's a lot of great discussion that's occurring. I think all 5 candidates want to move the city forward, which is exactly what we want. Yet, I haven't heard one candidate talk about the northwest side of the city, the 36th ward specifically. So I'm waiting for that one candidate to talk about what they're going to do for the 36th ward specifically. And when that candidate emerges, that'll be the person that I'm supporting. Until then, I'm undecided.
Thank you very much. Question number 11 concerns pensions. Do you support the state law passed last year that reduces cost of living adjustments for retirees and raises employee contributions in an attempt to fully fund municipal pensions? If not, do you think that this law is unconstitutional and should be overturned by the courts? Also, if this law is ultimately declared unconstitutional by the Illinois Supreme Court, what sources of new revenue would you support in order to fully fund the various public pension funds, keeping in mind that the current unfunded pension liability totals about $7,000 per Chicago resident? We're going to begin this round with Mr. Zaragoza.
I think this law is unconstitutional. I mean, a contract is a contract. When they agree to work for whatever, the firefighters, police, CTU, the teachers union, they were made promises, and when they retired, they kept their promise, and yet the city is not doing they're breaking this contract, and that's not fair, and it's not legal, in my opinion. I think the way to make sure that we come up with revenue for that is to have a Chicago-owned casino. I think we need a commuter transaction tax. I think we need a financial tax on the LaSalle Street markets. And I think we also need to come up with other revenues that aren't putting further strain on taxpayers of the city of Chicago.
I fully believe that that law is unconstitutional. It's unfair. I agree with Alonzo in his assessment that quite honestly, the people that created this hole that we're in are not the workers. It was the current leadership that we have and past leadership that were making decisions that were totally wrong. And because of that, we shouldn't be blaming or faulting those that have paid into their pension system and were promised certain things. As I said, I worked for seniors as a case manager for many years. I've seen the impact of how people live with a fixed income, and our teachers, our firefighters, and many others don't pay into Social Security. So their pension is what they are going to be living out of once they retire. And we cannot expect someone that is in the twilight of the years to go back into the job field to try to look for work. I mean, this is a serious issue. And so I have proposed some ideas. I'm in agreement. I think we have to look at options of taxing the LaSalle tax and commuter tax and TIF reforms and other things. I also am proposing a tax swap that would go away with this sort of nickel and diming that has been impacting on the middle class and working class specifically. So I believe it's completely unconstitutional.
I believe that it's unconstitutional as well. Contract is a contract, but we've got to do some heavy lifting. Down in Springfield, this problem originated in Springfield when the city of Chicago went down to Springfield to get what's called a pension holiday, which allowed the city of Chicago to skip payments. That's wrong. And they never made a plan to fulfill those payments. So I'm what's for what's called the fair tax bill. Senator Don Harmon has a bill that he's been working on for a couple of years. I think the city of Chicago really needs to get up and go down to Springfield with all 50 aldermen, with the mayor, the city clerk, the treasurer, and start advocating for what's called a fair tax. As it relates to, the fair tax would lower the taxes on almost everyone in the 36th ward. It's a graduated tax increase, a tax process that would, those that are making a little bit more should pay a little bit more. There's no reason why someone who makes $30,000 a year and $3 million a year are paying the same tax. As it relates to the regressive property tax that one of my opponents is talking about, that's a tax increase, a property tax increase. And each property owner is going to pay $646 extra in perpetuity. So again, we don't want to get caught up in these quick fix schemes of property tax increases. We need to get down to Springfield and work with the General Assembly to pass what's called the fair tax bill.
I do believe that it's unconstitutional. I am willing to fight for our current workers and retirees to make sure that their pension is untouched. To do that, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. You pointed out how significant the debt is. It's estimated that we have to increase our payments into the pension funds by about $1.9 billion a year. The city has already planned in our current budget for $550 million, which leaves about $1.35 billion that we need to come up with. So the answer to this is there is no one fix. Gilbert mentioned lobbying the state in hopes that they're going to do a fair tax, and I like the idea of a fair tax, but we just elected a Republican governor, and he is not going to be so eager to pass legislation that's essentially going to tax the rich. We can't put this in the lap of the state. We need to deal with this now. The longer we wait, the worse it gets. Over the last 10 years, our pension debt has tripled. The way we do this, we need to take a balanced approach. We need to look at every option. Alonzo mentioned a LaSalle Street tax. I think Karen Lewis said $1 per transaction. That's astronomical. If we can do a few cents per transaction, 2 cents per transaction. CME Group handles 13.7 million transactions in one day. That would estimate 75 million. I got to go fast. I got 15 seconds. 3% cut in our annual budgets, 270 million. A casino on the low end, 400 million if we do it ourselves. A commuter tax, not a percent, but a 0.5%.
Thank you.
150 million.
Thank you. Question number 12 concerns the Inspector General. There is a proposed ordinance that's stalled in the City Council Rules Committee, which would permit Chicago Inspector General Joe Ferguson to investigate allegations of corruption and malfeasance by members of the Chicago City Council and their staffs. Would you support bringing that ordinance out of committee? And if so, would you vote for or against it? We're going to begin this round with Mr. Aquino.
I would absolutely try to get it out of the Rules Committee and bring it to a vote, and I'd be lobbying my other colleagues in City Council to be voting for it. We need more transparency in elective office in this city. It's unfortunate that we live in a city and a state where politics and corruption just sometimes feels like it goes hand in hand, and we have to end that. And I believe we need to be giving the Inspector General more power to investigate elected officers, aldermen, and their staff, absolutely.
I'm for allowing the Inspector General some additional powers as well, and I would absolutely vote for it if it came out of rules.
Yes, I am for the Inspector General investigating anyone at City Council, so I would vote for that.
Yeah, of course. There's so much corruption in the city council, and it's very much needed.
Thank you, candidates. Question number 13 is regarding after-school programs, and this is another question submitted by Steinmetz students. There are too few social and extracurricular activities for teenagers in the Belmont-Cragen community. This is especially true in the evening, on weekends, and during school vacation periods. As Alderman, what programs would you initiate and support to engage teens when they are not in school? This question, we're going to begin with Mr. Villegas.
Can you repeat that question, please?
There are too few social and extracurricular activities for teenagers in the Belmont-Cragen community. It's especially true in the evening, on weekends, and during school vacation periods. As alderman, what programs would you initiate and support to engage teens when they're not in school?
Well, I think that one of the first things I'm going to do as well is there's a property on Fullerton Avenue right in between Hanson Stadium and Hanson School. It's a vacant building there. And I want to grab that piece of property and turn it into a community center. I think that that community center will allow for those kids that are specifically located around the schools. You have here, you have the Preto School, you have Hanson School, you have Prosser Vocational, and you also have that new charter school that's coming up. So you'll have a whole host of children that will have an opportunity to come to that community center to participate in activities. But we also need to take a look at, for example, Steinmetz High School. It's open Monday through Friday, closed on Saturdays and Sundays. We need to take a look at engaging some of the corporations that have not-for-profit dollars and maybe establishing a not-for-profit within Steinmetz High School to put together some programs that will allow for kids to participate at after-school activities and weekend activities.
I was talking with a gentleman earlier in the lobby about this, and I've talked at length about it on my website. I think the biggest problem we face in public education is we have certain kids, unfortunately, those that live in poverty, that don't have the follow-through that they need at home. And I'm a big supporter of mentoring. Rather than fist pump down at City Hall, I plan to implement this right in the 36th Ward. I plan to use what we have, our local schools, our neighborhood schools, local libraries, churches. What I envision is a true after-school program, a mentoring program. I'd like to see it work as a internship with our local city colleges, bringing kids in that are aspiring and studying to be educators or work with children. And what this will do is it will fill a void. We have a lot of kids that are in need of good role models. And we need to teach these kids how to become good students. You look at, in my own personal life, I have a 6-year-old and he's as sharp as a tack, but the reality is if he didn't have that follow-through at home, he would fall behind. And if kids fall behind, our teachers can only do so much in the classroom, and this is where the problem starts. In the summertime, I think we need to implement some summer programs, get these kids off the street, giving them a sense of value and worth, and most importantly, some positive mentors.
When I was in the LSC at Calvin Park, funding was cut from the school that kicked out great programs by the Logan Square Neighbors Association and MICFA also. We need more funding for those type of programs in our schools. We need a community center in our community. We just don't have one. 10 years ago, I tried to bring in a non-for-profit indoor soccer center over by Calvin Park area in the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood, and the alderman told us, I like baseball. For some reason, politicians ignore the needs of young adults, and they focus only on seniors and voters, but then they complain about youth-related crimes. That makes no sense to me. We need to bring more programs for young adults, and I'm going to work with whoever is alderman, and I'd like that to be me, to bring those programs into our community.
I think we need to work with programs quite like MICFA, After School Matters, and others. Actually, MICFA would have an open door at our office of having kids to be that are civically minded and want to intern in an elective office. They would always be welcomed into our office. But one of the things, I grew up in the 36th Ward, one of the things that the alderman there for many years did was pay for programs and help working class families pay for sport programs. And so I played at Sayre Park, Bell Park, Shabona, Reese Park, and whatnot. But part of the reason I was able my parents were able to afford those things is because the elected official actually, out of his own money and also from his donations he gets, he was able to pay for certain things within those programs. So I want to do things like that. But I think more importantly, not only after school programs, but we also want to have year-round employment opportunities, especially for teenagers, having them have the opportunity to really have an opportunity to earn some money, see how it is to get experience in working in an office or wherever. So we want to work with the chambers and local businesses to attract kids to make sure we have employment opportunities for them year-round.
Thank you, gentlemen. The 14th question pertains to business development. What are your plans for attracting new businesses to the 36th Ward? And also, are you in favor of using tax increment financing, or TIF funds, as a business development tool? If yes, please provide examples of TIF programs that you favor. Let's start this round with Mr. Vittorio.
Well, as I said before, I want to get the entire community actively involved in what I do. I believe that the way certain aldermen, including our current aldermen, do things is a little archaic. We have the technology at our fingertips, and no one seems to want to use that. My vision is to create a state-of-the-art website. It's going to be working in tandem with a smartphone application, linked to social media. My goal is to get everyone involved and up to speed with what I'm doing. So when we talk about bringing a new business to the ward, number one, I'm going to look at all the vacancies we have. I'm going to talk with property owners, see what their needs are. I'm going to talk with the local community, the local neighborhood, see what they'd like to have as a business. We want to bring quality business. I'm tired of seeing just cell phone stores, or there's always a Starbucks. I'd like to see a more long-lasting relationship, long-term residents. As far as TIFs, I think areas like ours suffer, and TIFs are being used downtown and in areas where they're not needed. I think that we need to focus that money on the blighted areas for which it was intended, and we have a lot of blighted areas. What I support, I believe TIF was used for the Home Depot near our Brickyard, and I think that was a great opportunity. What I don't support, and I think it's pretty obvious, is the DePaul University Stadium.
Thank you.
I've long been an advocate for small businesses and will work hard to fill the empty storefronts that line our main streets. I'm going to have a well-trained staff that knows how to cut through the red tape that often prevents small businesses from opening up in Chicago. My staff and I will take the time to show business owners how to fill out paperwork properly and efficiently navigate the permitting process. I will seek out successful small businesses in other communities and encourage them to open up shop in our own ward. We have plenty of tax increment financing available to help convince these shop owners into giving our community a chance. I will create a 36 Ward Chamber of Commerce to unite business owners and work with them to help our business community grow and thrive. I'll also make it clear to business owners that my administration will never pressure them into making campaign donations or force them to put up political signs on much too valuable storefront windows.
In terms of business development in the 36th Ward, as I said earlier, I would want to have a comprehensive assessment on working with places of academic locations such as UIC and others, and working with the Chamber's Small Business Administration to make sure that the adequate resources and services are provided in this community to attract businesses. But I am an advocate for using TIF funds for what they're created for, and which is here in the 36th Ward, TIF funds are created to develop jobs, and that's what we want to do. Right now, a lot of that money is going into infrastructure, which is needed but can come from other resources. We have to look at other areas such as our enterprise zones and planned manufacturing districts as well, to make sure that they're also doing the job they're supposed to do. But I'm in total agreement with Chris, and that a good example of TIF usage was the blighted Brickyard, that unfortunately when a lot of those big stores started leaving, it was basically, it was pretty empty. And the usage of TIF, you now see a great location of many new retail stores and whatnot. And also, absolutely not. We should not be paying public money for a sports facility that is for a private institution that has their own endowment funds that they could use. And I just leave you with this. I believe TIF money is, if not for TIF development, development would not occur. That is the basis that you should be making your decision with TIFs.
Thank you.
Well, in the 36th Ward, there'll be a business incubator. As a small business owner myself, I understand some of the challenges. As the former associate director at Hispanic American Construction Industry Association, I represented over 300 companies, and I firsthand know a lot of the challenges that they went through as it relates to dealing with the bureaucracy in the city of Chicago. I mean, 120 days to get an awning for a business is just ludicrous. What we want to do is make sure that that process is streamlined. There's technology that's available. There's no reason why it should be taking 120 days to get anything processed. Um, I'm currently working already with the Polish American Chamber of Commerce to talk about some of their import-export businesses that they're trying to promote within the 36th Ward. And like I mentioned, the 36th Ward will be a business incubator. We're going to be business-friendly, again, because of the fact that I know some of the issues that they face. As it relates to TIF, I think the Brickyard is a great example of how TIFs were utilized. It created a lot of jobs, a lot of union jobs, and I think that was a great use of TIF funds.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we have about 10 minutes left, so let's take 2 more questions if we can. The 15th question pertains to student safety. As Alderman, what actions would you take to ensure that students who live and attend school in the 36th Ward can travel safely to and from school? We're going to begin this round with Mr. Zaragoza.
So I think we need more police in the neighborhood, but I don't think more police is going to solve these problems. We need more opportunities for youth, jobs in community center area. We need to restore the cuts to mental facilities. Earlier last year in January, we had a 15-year-old girl who was attacked by somebody who could have benefited from the mental health facilities that this mayor closed. We need to improve our schools by fully funding them, right? We need to implement restorative justice programs in our schools to decrease the dropout rate so that our students could be safer and in school, not on the streets. We need to involve the community again with block clubs so that the residents can also help the police and make sure that our students are crossing the school, getting to school safely and coming back home at night safely. We need library hours extended again so that people can use computers to work on resumes and the young adults can apply for jobs and stay off the streets. So we have a lot of work to do, and our students are our future, and we got to keep them safe.
As I said in my introduction, I'm for hiring more police officers. I believe that we also need more after-school programs, both at our schools and at our parks. And I'm for year-round employment opportunities being offered to students, especially teenagers. I think we need to work on improving our community policing and trying to encourage people to be more active in CAPS meetings and so forth, and helping develop block clubs and other things like that. But as I said earlier, none of these things, unfortunately, can be accomplished if we don't have the adequate revenue to do so. And we need to really be looking at our budgetary crisis that we're in right now. This city, at the moment, is just cutting and cutting and cutting, and that's why right now we haven't hired more police officers. We don't have more frontline workers, and we won't be able to afford to pay and hire more officers if we're not really attacking those issues. And so that's what I hope to do once in City Council. So I'm not making sort of these promises that don't have any backing. I want to solve the main issues so that we do have services in our community that are better, and having police officers in our streets to protect and serve.
$100 million in overtime for the police department. $100 million. We need to take a look at redirecting some of our resources. Some of these officers that are working at the desk, bring in civilians, get the police out there to do their job of policing. And I was endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, and I want to make sure that we're bringing on additional police officers. I want to make sure that the communities understand that these precious cargo are kids. I have a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old, and I want to make sure that when my children are traveling to school, that they're safe. And so we need to make sure that the community is engaged in this process. These are all our children. So again, I want to make sure that we have additional police on the force. I don't know what that number is, but I can tell you that we need additional police officers.
Again, we really need to get this next generation engaged. I think mentoring is the best way to do that. The reason we have so many problems with gangs and crime is because there's a need for their services. We have kids that are lost and are looking for direction. We need to bring them back in, get them engaged, active in their studies. The way to do that is mentoring. This is going to take a while. This could be a generation. In the meantime, our city has a responsibility to protect everyone, and we need a stronger police presence. Gilbert mentioned how much we spend in overtime. The The mayor says we don't need more police officers. We do, and he's conceding that fact with the amount of overtime that he's allocated. And he's doing it in overtime because overtime is not pensionable. So we need to take a close look and hire more police officers.
Candidates, this is your last question, and we're going to begin with candidate Aquino again. We're going to start with him. It's question 16, and it pertains to aldermanic overreach. What areas or situations do you think are not within the purview of an alderman? Please explain how you would handle a situation where someone attempted to involve you in a manner that was beyond the authority and the scope of your office. Mr. Aquino.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think beyond the purview of the alderman is making decisions for our residents, especially with education, without having sufficient data and not having the correct voices at the table. Like I said, one of the first things that I will be doing once in office is creating advisory committees throughout for important issues so that the adequate stakeholders, the professionals and people that are in the community that should have a voice at the table, and when decisions are being made at City Council, will have that voice. So again, that's where I think we need to be heading, making sure that the alderman is a true representative of the community and making sure that we are listening to our residents.
I mentioned earlier that I'm running under the platform called PEACE, Public Safety, Education, Accountability, City Services, and Economic Development. And as it relates to accountability, I think this is where the more democracy is better. An alderman is similar to a mayor of a little village. And so participatory budgeting is something that I'm going to be focusing on bringing to the 36th Ward. Every alderman gets $1.3 million to spend on menu money. I'm looking to create a participatory budgeting committee that will be made up of the north, west, and south side of the ward that will pick members from the community and allow them to assist us in developing a menu that the residents of the 36th Ward will be able to allow to vote on. Again, more democracy, engaging the residents of the 36th Ward. Again, these are your tax dollars. So I'm going to be looking for the residents of the 36th Ward to assist me in identifying which infrastructure projects in the 36th Ward should be done through participatory budgeting.
I think the most power that an alderman has probably would have to do with zoning. Years ago in the 36th Ward, we had Alderman Banks, and he was a prime example of tremendous overreach. He was very eager to build very large developments in our ward, and there was a connection within his family of a realtor, a lot of people in real estate, and it was a perfect example. We need to focus on growth, but as an alderman, I would always make sure that everything we do is in keeping with the integrity of our neighborhoods. I know Alonzo's probably going to get on the subject of gentrification, which I think is a positive, but we do want to make sure that it's always in keeping with the quality and the character of our neighborhoods. So I think that's the most important thing we need to keep an eye on. That's why I encourage all the residents, if I am elected, and I'm going to get them engaged and make sure they're involved in any decisions I make.
So I'm not going to talk about gentrification. What happens in one ward of the city affects every other ward. There are no boundaries. If I toss garbage on Diversey, the wind's going to blow it north to Belmont. When Emma Mitz pushed the Noble Street School on the border of the 36th and 37th Ward, even though it's not my ward, I joined our neighbors to protest her office to let her know that's not the right thing to do. That's not the best thing for our community, both of our communities. I don't think anything should be off the table as far as aldermen working with or working against other aldermen. Aldermen need to work together to move the entire city forward, not just their own ward.
Candidates, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm round of applause for the candidates.